Mr. Gopalan, the Vice Chancellor of the University, the founders, very distinguished people here, and let me first thank Mr. Thadani for this wonderful, extraordinary introduction which he gave, and all the distinguished founders who are here. Let me thank them for inviting me to deliver this annual lecture. I found that you've had a series of intellectuals of very great eminence who've delivered lectures in the past, whereas I have worked in both the North and the South Block of India, which managed to block just about everything in India. So it's an odd choice that you've made, which you'll regret. But let me say that I was directed by your founders to speak on my own personal experiences, which is a very, very tough job. But let me say that my life is full of great opportunities and great challenges, and it's also a story of lots of ups and downs. And I come from a very middle-class family. My mother was an academic. My father was a judge, and I studied in Delhi, got transferred from UP and came to Delhi. I'm saying this because many of your students also come from a similar background. And, once when I was growing up, there were very few options of working in the private sector or to do a startup. That period, most young people, their ambition was to work in the government. And therefore, I sat for the exams, got into the civil services, and I landed up in Kerala. And I still recall a very long journey by Kerala Express, which took about 48 hours to reach Kerala. And Kerala, it was, when I reached there, I discovered that one side, it was an amazing place because it had very high rates of literacy. It had very high health outcomes. The physical quality of life index, the human development was of an extraordinary quality. And 100% literacy, many standards of health and education and nutrition. Kerala was way ahead of European or American states. And yet at the same time, it was a state in turmoil with very high labor tensions at that time, and therefore manufacturing never took off in Kerala. And this constant contradiction always amazed me. And the first few years of my career, actually, I worked in the fisheries sector, and the then Chief Minister wanted me to transform the lives of traditional fishermen. And actually, I moved living from one fishing village to another for 4 years, almost virtually living in these fishing villages. And that actually altered my perspective of development in a very big way. Because my task was really to transform their lives. And one of the things we did was to provide them cutting-edge technology, bring them new outboard motors so that they could go much further into the sea. We could give them new fiberglass crafts so that they could get access to more stable crafts. We provided them what was then known as very good fishing nets, which are known as the disco nets at that time. And so this enabled them to, the outboard motors enabled them to go much further and get a higher catch. But one of the challenges was that the traditional fishermen used to get just about 20% of the marketed price of the catch. And there were 18 layers of middlemen in between by the time the fish used to reach the ultimate consumer. And one of the things we did was to introduce beach-level auctions so that there could be a intersection of demand and supply at the beach level itself. And the challenge was that fishermen were prone to drinking. So if they get the full amount, they would drink it up the same day. Their life was very tough going into the sea. And we had to open their bank accounts. And chasing a bank manager, doing your know your customer, and opening a physical bank account was a nightmare. It used to take me 6 months, 7 months chasing a physical bank manager to open a physical bank account. Today we open it in 1 minute using, your identity because of Aadhaar. But then it used to take me 6 to 7 months to open their bank accounts. Know your customer was a nightmare. And one of the things we did was that we opened for fisher women used to take fish in normal buses. It was a huge challenge because they would not be allowed to keep their fish basket. So we got a new bus designed where the baskets could be kept at the back, and these buses were only for fisher women. And we started with 2 buses for traditional fisher women so that they could come in front and the baskets could be kept at the back. And today there are almost about 30 buses running where fisherwomen take their bus and sell it in the respective colonies of the city. And actually we took the returns of the traditional fishermen from about 20% to close to 85% of the market price. So the returns to the traditional fishermen went up very high because of good technology, good demand, good beach level auction, their ability to sell directly to the consumer and keep the money into their bank account. And that, to my mind, really gave me the lesson of development that if you want to transform lives of people, you have to actually work with them. And one of the key jobs, my jobs, was really about extension and mass communication, of forming self-help groups of fishermen, which was very challenging. But that really made me learn the Malayalam language in a very big way. And the 4 years that I spent with fishermen were the most satisfying period of my life in Kerala. Since I had done a reasonably good job, the chief minister actually decided to post me to a very prominent district, which was where Vasco da Gama had landed and discovered India. And that was the Calicut district of Kerala. And this was the Malabar region of the northern region, but the Malabar region. And the story was that if Vasco da Gama was to come back to Calicut, he would find, it was a very literate city. It was a city of UNESCO, is now declared as the city of literature. The top writers, the top poets all come from that district. But the story was that if Vasco da Gama was to come back ever, he'll find the district exactly as he had left it. No public area, no recreational area, very narrow street roads, and no breathing lungs in the city. And fortunately, when I became the collector, I also became the municipal commissioner and chairman because the municipality had been superseded. And I got a huge opportunity to transform that district. So I widened 26 roads. I created a new bypass. I removed about 450 encroachments from the city, created a new breathing lung, which is known as the Mananjara Maidan. And I created a new airport, which is the first airport in India, which was based on public-private partnership with a user's fee model. Because then a lot of Keralites used to go from that region to the Gulf area, but they used to come to Mumbai. And in Mumbai, they used to spend a night, get harassed by immigration customs, and then come to Calicut the next day and spend a lot of more money. So they were willing to pay the user's development fee, on the basis of which we expanded the airport to about 11,000 feet. And all carriers could then go to the Gulf. And we really, because of the new breathing lung, the city had widened, the new areas had come up, new bypass had been created, new airport came up. The city got transformed in a very, very, very big way. But by removing these 450 encroachments in the heart of the city and demolishing a number of large buildings, it had its own repercussions. And as soon as I had got into my next posting, which was as managing director of the State Industrial Development Corporation. One of the persons whose building I had demolished had gone on to become a deputy chief minister. And so he took it upon himself and he got after me. And, so the criminal cases were filed against me. I was placed without a posting for about 10 months. I had no charge. And I was harassed in a very big way, and for almost, I thought that was the end, and I was a young officer at that time, so I really thought that was the end of my career, that there's no future for me, and it was without a job for about 10, 11 months almost, and the entire political system, it was a communist government in power, they all got after me in a very big way. And then, after about 11 months, they posted me to a job which was a very nondescript job in Kerala, because nobody had then heard of Kerala as a tourism destination. Tourists used to go to Rajasthan, come to Rajasthan here for the experience, or go to Kashmir. Nobody had heard of Kerala as a tourism destination. So they posted me to a very nondescript job, which was then considered to be a punishment posting for all officers. And so I was posted as Secretary Tourism. Nobody had ever worked in tourism for more than 5 to 6 months. But I took to tourism in a very big way, and I thought I would, start transforming that area. So I felt that Kerala had huge opportunities. I looked at it from another perspective. The only destination then known was the Kovalam beach, where a lot of cheap tourists used to come, charterful flights used to come, and that charters coming in means basically low-value tourists from UK coming in, and that had led to a lot of encroachment on Kovalam beach, and that had led to, selling at very low prices for the next season. So I actually closed Kovalam for about almost 2 years to redo that destination. But in the meanwhile, I opened up new destinations. I opened up the backwaters of Kerala. I revived the houseboats of Kerala, on which not a single nail is used, these were the traditional rice boats of Kerala. And all the traditional carpenters had gone away to Gulf. So we brought them back to do up these houseboats in a very innovative manner, exactly like, a Keralite houseboats would be. The traditional houses of Kerala, the Nalkittam houses, are some of the most beautiful pieces of architecture. They were being sold as firewood in the market. We revived the Nalkittam houses and assembled them as houses on the beach and revived the traditional Kerala architecture. But one of the things we did was to say that Kerala would differentiate, and the world of tourism works on this principle of differentiation, that we will differentiate Kerala from the rest of the world, and differentiate it by going back to the roots of Kerala. So we went back to the traditional Kerala martial art, Kalri Pet, which is the mother of all martial art, and revived it. It was a dying tradition. We revived all the traditional art forms of Kerala, from Otanthulal to Kathakali to Mohiniyattam. We revived all these traditional art forms. Nobody had heard of the Kerala cuisine, what has become very famous now. The vegetable stew, the appam, all that was traditional cuisine of Kerala, was revived by us as Kerala, part of the Kerala tourism journey. And to my mind, this differentiated Kerala from the rest of the world, because we said we will not ape the West. We'll go back to the roots of Kerala and create a product which is very, very different from any other destination in the world. And that gave Kerala a very unique identity based on its Ayurveda, and we said Ayurveda is not about massage, it's about a regimen. You need about 21 days to be able to revive yourself and rejuvenate yourself. So the number of days being spent in Kerala was many more by tourists. We revived backwaters, we revived the houseboats of Kerala, we revived the art forms, we revived the martial art, we revived the traditional Kerala cuisine. And that's what created Kerala as a great tourism destination. And then we got many journalists from abroad to come and write. A National Geographic Traveler, the editor, came in, and he declared Kerala as one of the great exotic paradises of the world. And he wrote a fabulous piece, and he said that Kerala is unique not because of its natural beauty and its great product, but when you combine this great literacy, this huge health outcomes, the wonderful physical quality of life index with this with the beauty of the nature there, that's what makes Kerala unique. And he said this is an exotic paradise of the world. And that led to taking us Kerala from a $20 a night destination and we created it into a $500 a night destination. We took it up the value chain from a low value beach destination to a great experiential destination for the alert, independent traveler. And we said that this is what makes Kerala unique. And Kerala was much talked about at that period of time. And it was a Sunday and I was sleeping at home that time. And suddenly I got a call that the principal secretary to the Prime Minister wants to talk to you. And so I was wondering what it is about, because as a young officer, Mr. Brajesh Mishra came on the line and he said, are you the Secretary Tourism? So I said, yes, sir. So he said, the Prime Minister wants to will have a holiday in Kerala. You will be in charge of it. There will be no politician, no chief minister, no political leader. You will take care of him. You decide where you want to take him, and you'll be the only person with him there from the state government. So, I arranged Mr. Vajpayee's visit to Kumaragam in the backwaters of Kerala, where he did his Kumaragam musings he wrote on several poetries there. He stayed there for about 6-7 days in Kumaragam backwaters. And every day my job was to take him out into the backwaters or do many other things, but cultural evenings, etc. But I used to sit next to him. Mr. Brajesh Mishra used to make me sit next to him as the host of Kerala. And one day I'd taken him into the backwaters of Kerala and on a lovely houseboat, and we came back and he'd seen the signages, he'd seen how backwaters had developed, he'd met villagers on the way because the houseboat floats in the backwater, unlike Kashmir where boats are stationary. Here the houseboat is constantly moving. So you can interact. He interacted, he came back, he was very happy. And then in the night, Mr. Brajesh Mishra turned to Mr. Vajpayee and he said कि साहब ये लड़के ने बड़ा अच्छा काम किया है, इसको दिल्ली लाते हैं भारत सरकार में. So Mr. Vajpayee turned to me and he said कि अमिताभ आपने अप्लाई किया है भारत सरकार के लिए? तो I said नहीं सर, मैंने तो नहीं अप्लाई किया. तो he said कि बिल्कुल मत अप्लाई करना, अगर अप्लाई करोगे तो ये ब्रजेश मिश्रा तुम्हें टूरिज्म के बदले विमेन एंड चाइल्ड वेलफेयर में भेज देंगे. That was the end of the story. That was the end of the story. And, I applied for Government of India after 1 year, 2 months. And the Civil Services Board actually selected me to go to the Ministry of Finance, and I was quite happy. Then, I got another call. That was another Saturday or a Sunday. I got a call. I was at home and the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister wants to talk to you. So Mr. Brajesh Mishra again came in the line and said, अमिताभ तुमने भारत सरकार के लिए अप्लाई किया है? तो आई सेड यस सर, आई अप्लाई किया है. तो ही सेड कि तुम्हें मालूम है कहाँ जा रहे हो? तो आई सेड यस सर, मुझे मालूम है कि मैं फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री जा रहा हूँ. तो ही सेड कि डू यू रिकॉल दैट कॉन्वर्सेशन वी हैड दैट डे? यू विल नॉट गो टू फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री, गेट रेडी टू गो टू मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ टूरिज्म. सो आई सेड सर, बट देयर इज नो वैकेंसी इन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ टूरिज्म. ही सेड दैट्स नन ऑफ योर कंसर्न. सो दे लिफ्टेड द जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी हु वाज देयर इन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ टूरिज्म, posted him to Ministry of Labour, created a vacancy, brought me to the Ministry of Tourism. That's how I landed up in the Ministry of Tourism. And as soon as I landed up, within 2 weeks of that, the 26/11 blast happened. The 9/11 blast in New York happened. The Twin Tower had collapsed. There was war in Afghanistan. There was attack on our parliament, and there were huge travel advisories against India. And there were just 10 to 12% occupancy, and that was a peak of an international crisis with a number of things happening post the Twin Tower blast in New York. Tourism was not growing, and at the peak of that crisis, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, everyone had stopped their marketing campaigns. And, so we went to tour operators, and tour operators then used to sell packages based on, brochures which used to be where tour packages used to be published. So we went to international tour operators who said, sir, even if you buy packages, even if you buy pages after pages of brochures, nobody will come to India. There's no consumer demand for India. And at the peak of the crisis, when Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore had all suspended their campaign, we launched the Incredible India campaign. And the Incredible India campaign was a 360-degree campaign. That was the first time India had ever done commercials. India had done, we took it to the print, we took it to the digital media. First time anybody had gone to the digital media. And we drove consumer demand in a very big way. It was a marketing-led strategy. And we went back again to yoga, Ayurveda, meditation, and we revived consumer demand for India. And what it really demonstrated is that you could actually bring consumer demand back to India. And we grew and grew and grew and grew. Within 2.5, 3 years, we grew so much that we realized that there was no infrastructure to support the inflow of tourists in India. We took it from 1 million to close to 5 million, and there was no consumer. And then people realized that you needed new airports. It was a marketing-led strategy which led to the creation of new airports at Mumbai, at Delhi, at Bangalore, at Hyderabad. And it led to the creation of many new airlines which came in. All this Indigo and many other airlines which came in was a consequence of a marketing-led strategy because of this Incredible India campaign. So a great marketing-led strategy can actually revive demand. It can bring back infrastructure and drive the growth of India. And that's why I really feel that tourism has a huge multiplier impact on growth. For every single job that you create another 11 jobs. And later, I was put in charge of I was of the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, where I had this great opportunity to think big, plan for new cities like Dholera, Shindra, Bidkin, etc., do master planning, get them executed. So if you go to Shindra, Bidkin, you will find a completely, and that's one of the big challenges of India, of lack of good sustainable urbanization. But if you go to Shindra, Bidkin near Aurangabad, you will find a city of 250 square kilometers and Dholera of 700 square kilometers. That's the first time I'd met Mr. Modi, because I was going from chief minister to chief minister asking for land to make new urbanization. And nobody would listen to me. Still, I met Mr. Modi and he asked me, how much land do you want? So I said, I need about 100 square kilometers. So he said, I'll give you 700 square millimeter. Go and develop Dholera. So if you go to Dholera now, you go to Shindra, Bidkin in Maharashtra, which Mr. Fadnavis gave us, these are completely new urban areas which are manufacturing-led, but which are walk to work, where managers, workers all live together, and which are very well planned, and where you have access to the best technology, smart technologies, and where every bit of water is recycled, electricity you get, everything is clean, and it's all sustainable urbanization for the future, which is manufacturing-led. So that gave me an opportunity to think big, think large in terms of planning for new cities and new urbanization in India. And later I was made Secretary, Department of Industrial Promotion and Policy. As soon as I had become Secretary, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, the government changed and this government came in, Mr. Modi came in. And the first presentation I made to him, he said that, I was telling him that India does very badly in ease of doing business. And we were then 147th in the ease of doing business in the World Bank ranking. So he said that you go after this ease of doing business. And we started working on these ease of doing business. And in 3 years' time, we jumped up 79 positions in the World Bank ease of doing business. It was very tough convincing the bureaucrats and the civil servants to change their mindset. We got everything digitized in Government of India. But the initial pangs were so difficult that actually, we went to EPFO, got the process digitized so that no human intervention could take place. But the EPFO and ESIC, what they did was that they digitized, but they also insisted on getting paperwork. So in first year, instead of going up, we went down. Because the World Bank said that you are digitizing is fine, but you're harassing your customers by introducing paperwork also. So it took us second year, third year, but by the third year, we really went after it, and we jumped up and make things very easy and simple. And one of the things we did was we started ranking states. So the first year we did this ranking, Gujarat came number 1. But next year, Andhra beat Gujarat. And the third year, Telangana beat Andhra and Gujarat. But the great thing that happened was that the mineral-rich states of Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, who were 24th and 25th, had jumped up to come to 4th and 5th position. So my view is, if you can rank states, if you can name and shame them and put up data in public domain, and this is very important, take data and put it in public domain so that every common man knows, states will start improving. Elected members, civil servants will all become accountable for that. And that's why these states jumped up. And this has to be a constant process on real-time data basis, on delta. That is change during the course of the year, not historically, but during the course of the year, what has been the change that has taken place. And that's why I believe that a lot could be done. But one of the things that we did was during that period was that we started not merely focusing on ease of doing business, but we dismantled the entire foreign direct investment regime. I took 24 cabinet notes. All of them got approved. And FDI, 98% of it comes through the automatic route now. None of them is physically approved by an officer today in India. And that made a huge difference. But, the launch of, when we went to the Prime Minister and said that we want to do the Startup India campaign, he said, ये क्या होता है स्टार्टअप, ये तो फिर तुम लोग ब्यूरोक्रेट प्रोसीजर्स में मार दोगे इनको. तो we removed all licensing, we removed all inspector raj from the startups. At that point of time, there were just 350 startups, as Vijay had mentioned. Today, there are 147,000 startups in India. 147,000. India has over 150 unicorns in India. All this disruption that you've seen in startups. We started, PM then said, there was the period also that we were digitizing. So everybody had an Aadhaar, but 2015 to 2017, the country opened up 550 million bank accounts. Every second bank account was opened in India. And, Indian women had only 18% of the bank accounts were opened by, women had only 18% of the account. Today, 88% of the women have bank accounts in India. That has been the transformation. So, what happened as a consequence of that with these bank accounts, we then seeded these bank accounts with both the Aadhaar and the mobile number. And that led to fast payments. So when the demonetization happened, Prime Minister at that stage asked me, he'd gone abroad, he came back and said, you launch 100 digital melas in 100 days. So I went to him, I made a presentation, Principal Secretary and I went to him and we said, sir, 100 दिन में 100 digital मेले कैसे हो सकते हैं? सर, आप हफ्ते में एक करवाइए. He said, नहीं, 100 दिन में 100 करो. So again I told him in the presentation, नहीं सर, 100 दिन में मत करवाइए सर. एक हफ्ते का एक मेले में कराइए, अच्छी तरह करेंगे, प्रोफेशनली करेंगे, इसको ब्रांड करेंगे. सर नहीं, तुम 100 दिन में 100 डिजिटल मेले करो. But that 100 days we really worked hard. We did 100 digital melas. PM was not willing to listen. He forced it on us, but when you look back, those 100 days we worked so hard. We brought RBI, we brought the banks together, we brought all the startups together, we brought NPCI together, and that led to India's fast payment movement. And today, India does 150 billion fast payments in the world. We do 50% of the fast payments in the world. 50%. We are number 1 in the world. China is number 2 with just 22 billion fast payments. So real-time fast payments took off. And as a consequence of that, many things happened. The growth, because you had created the backbone of the digital infrastructure, you saw new startups, many, Mobiquick, Pine Lab, all of them started giving credit based on payment history. And then you had a new set of startups like Zerodha, Grow, Upstock. All these startups took your stock market, wealth creation into rural areas, tier 2, tier 3 cities. Today they control 30% plus of the Indian stock market. Young startups. And then you had another set of startups, Go Digit, Acco, etc., who took insurance into tier 2, tier 3 cities. When I was a young officer, it used to take me 1 year to get a life insurance on paperwork from LIC. Today, from fast payment to credit to stock market transactions to insurance, Indians do in 30 seconds to 1 minute. This does not happen anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. I mean, I have not used a bank account, physical bank I've not been to. I've not used an ATM machine. I've not used my debit and credit card for the last 4.5 years. The only time I've used my credit card is when I went to America to visit my daughter and I had to take a taxi. I had to use that credit card, but I've never used it in India. Everybody used the mobile for payments here. So that has been the real transformation of India. And as we spread this, you will see this huge transformation of the digital public infrastructure in improving health outcomes, in improving learning outcomes, in improving nutritional standards based on the vast amount of data that we'll throw up. The power of machine learning, the power of artificial intelligence will transform India in due course. And therefore, this experience of doing the digital movement in India and then driving Make in India was a unique experience because India's growth story has largely been driven by the services sector, by people like Mr. Pawar, people like Mr. Thadani or Mr. Rajendran or Mr. Avinash. All of them have driven it on the back of services sector. But if you want jobs, if you want growth with jobs, you need to create manufacturing. And therefore, it was very critical that manufacturing is driven in India. And therefore, we did this Make in India initiative, and we did several things as a consequence of that. Not only did we ease up on terms of licensing, but we opened up the patent regime. Today, we register over 1 lakh of patents. We opened up the trademark regime. We opened up the FDI regime. And then we launched this production-linked incentive scheme, which has seen the huge manufacturing of Apple and Samsung phones in India. So that has led to, what you will see in the coming years is that many of these PLIs will lead to huge value addition and manufacturing in India as a consequence of what has been done in the manufacturing sector. So I worked in the industry sector in terms of ease of doing business, Startup India, Make in India, many other areas. And then I was about to retire, so I went to the, one of these meetings. The Prime Minister suddenly called me and he said, "Ki you continue to, आप मेरे साथ ही काम करो, ये नीति आयोग में जाकर काम करो अब." So I landed up as CEO of NITI Ayog, and NITI Ayog was a replacement for the Planning Commission. It was a completely new body. And one of the challenges was that how do you drive many of these changes constantly and use NITI Ayog as an institution of federal transformation or working with the state governments. And so one of the challenges was constantly to tell the states how they were performing. So I took what I had learned in terms of ease of doing business, ranking, to education, to health, to nutrition, to many other areas, and started ranking these states. And I suddenly realized that chief ministers of several states of India started saying that, you are always putting us last. So I realized that suddenly, the eastern part of India, and this is a story which we must understand, that it will not be, when we talk about India becoming a Viksit Bharat means that India must grow from today being a $4 trillion economy to a $30 trillion economy. That means that India's GDP has to grow 9 times. India's per capita income has to grow 8 times. Its manufacturing must grow 16 times. And very few countries in the past have been able to do this. It was done by Japan in the post-World War II. It was done by Korea. And in recent times, China has done it between 1990 to 2010. So if you want to grow at rates of 9 to 10% per annum, year after year, for 3 decades or more, and not get caught in the middle income trap, this means that 9 to 10% growth would require you to fire on all cylinders. This would require you to grow on manufacturing. It will require you to enhance your agriculture productivity. It will require you to grow on services. It will require you to urbanize in a very sustainable manner. But more than anything else, you need about 12 champion states. And you can't do it on the back of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, which have already grown for a fairly long period at those rates. So you need Bihar, you need UP, you need Madhya Pradesh, you need Rajasthan, you need Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand to grow at high rates. And these are the mineral-rich states of India. These are the most populous states of India. If these states don't grow, it will be very difficult for India to become a $30 trillion economy. So the importance of ranking these states is that these states must transform, these states must grow. And without these states growing at rapid rates for the next 3 to 4 decades, it will be very difficult for India to grow at 9 to 10% per annum for the next 3 to 4 decades. And therefore, one of the challenges in NITI Ayog we constantly faced was to tell these states that you need to really transform and make structural reforms in your economy. And that is what we pushed for in many things. But one of the most exciting things I did in NITI Ayog was to really launch this Atal Innovation Mission, where we opened up 10,000 tinkering labs in the schools of India. So the first time in India, students of class 5th started playing around with many new tinkering labs, and they got this opportunity to tinker around with a range of instruments so that they could play around and do many things, including artificial intelligence at a very young age, play with data, play with equipments. And 10,000 tinkering labs were found, and we supported over 250 incubation centers in India. And that, to my mind, was a very satisfying experience, because these tinkering labs were open to schools in the neighborhood as well. So students could access them from the neighborhood. That was very satisfying to my mind. And the third thing that really happened was that we could structure, after a lot of debate and discussion, the production-linked incentive schemes for many sectors of India, which is now leading to a huge transformation, because size and scale of manufacturing was critical. So what we said in the production-linked incentive scheme is you have to keep growing bigger and bigger every year for the next 5 years to become a manufacturing champion. But another great experience was to really, the Prime Minister's asked me to work on some of the most backward districts of India. We didn't call them the backward districts, we called them the aspirational districts of India. And aspirational district program was not based on putting much resources, but it was based on actually ranking these districts on how they are performing and outcomes. So we took out education, we took out health, we took out nutrition, and we took out agriculture productivity and said these are the outcomes on which we'll rank you. And we'll put out the ranking every month, and we will capture the change every month. So that, historically, if you look at it, Kerala will keep coming number 1. So we said, no, every month change we'll capture. And we started ranking some of the most backward districts, from, Bastar to Kifre in Nagaland to some of the districts you've never heard of. And these districts started ranking. And suddenly we found huge improvement, because we created competition. We had outcomes, defined outcomes. You could track data, and data was used for governance. This was not possible when I was a young collector, but it's possible now because you can access data on the basis of your mobiles today. We trained the officers to get real-time data from the field, and we started putting this data out every month by month. And we started naming and shaming these districts. So the elected MLA knew how his district was performing. The collector knew how they were performing, and because the collectors were challenged, we said the best performing districts will give an award, and we will support them, and we said that 10% of the outlays will be provided only to districts who will perform well. And that led to a huge transformation. And these 112 districts actually started performing much better than the best performing districts of the state. So what my lesson really is that we need to work on outcomes. We need to work on competition, we need to work on data, and we need to name and shame to transform India. And therefore, my experience of aspirational district is that transformation is very much feasible if we do it on data and if we do it on outcomes. And then when we finished this, I was finishing my term and NITI Ayog, and I went to the Prime Minister, sir, that you've given me over 6 years, you should not keep an officer for more than 5 years. He said, fine, you suggest me your successor. So I suggested some successor, but when I went to call on him, he said that now you go and take over as the G20 Sherpa, which was the toughest thing to do because it was very difficult to bring a consensus in a very fractured world. The Russia-Ukraine crisis was at its peak, and it was impossible to bring a consensus between USA and Russia, both of whom were members of the G20. So I was suddenly made the G20 Sherpa just when India's G20 was about to begin. I think just a month and a half before that, I was put into this job, and I had to execute the G20. And PM had very ambitious plans. He said, normally G20s are held in 1 or 2 cities, like Brazil has held it in either Rio or Brasilia. PM said that you do it in every state of India. So 220 meetings we did in every state and every union territory of India. Every state, and he said you turn it into a mass movement. So we had to bring everybody together. We took it to every state of India, and we exposed every state, and then we said that every state, the gift will only be of that state, one district, one product. The culture will be only of that state. The cuisine will be only of that state. So we promoted all these states while doing it. And then I landed up with the final round of meeting where I had to build consensus amongst all these 20 countries. And we worked, and I took all these Sherpas out of Delhi, and I said, there's no way you can have a consensus in Delhi. So I took them about 60 kilometers away in New at this ITC hotel there, and I locked these Sherpas there. And I said, no mobiles are allowed, no pressman is allowed, nobody can come in with a camera. So for about 12 days, I locked up all these Sherpas, and the Sherpas were either the cabinet secretaries or the national security advisors. And they fretted and fumed, but they couldn't do a thing. And we started negotiating. So 16 drafts failed. We had, on the Russia-Ukraine para, I had 300 rounds of negotiation. After about in the, just went on and on and on. Russia was on another side, USA was on another side, G7 on another side, emerging markets on another side, China on another side. China was opposing us on Vasudev, Kutumbakam, women-led development, many more issues. We had to work through Sherpa. And finally, on the last day, we got this agreement hammered out. Leaders were to come next day in the morning at about 9 o'clock, and the Prime Minister talked to me the previous night at 12 o'clock. He said, "Kya hua?" I said, "Sir, abhi tak to kuch nahi hua hai." So at about 12:30, I took the final draft before the Sherpas, and I said, "This is the draft. Either you take it or you lump it. But this is the final draft of the Russia-Ukraine para, and we'll go ahead with this," because I knew everybody's red line. The Russians opposed it. So I took the Russian deputy minister who had come to the room, and I said, my leader has told me that if you don't agree, the first speaker after the Prime Minister will be Zelensky to speak. So he said, "Oh, Mr. Zelensky is not here." I said, "But we'll get him virtually." So I said, "And we've given him 20 minutes to speak if you don't agree." So he consulted Kremlin and all. Within 15 minutes, I had a yes. And then, we got, by morning, at the consent of France, Germany, Italy, everyone, but I did not have the consent of United States of America. So I phoned up the Sherpa in the morning at about 7:30. And he said, "Amitabh, give me half an hour. I have to still brief President Biden, and I'll tell you in about half an hour." But he got back to me in half an hour. And he said, "We'll agree, but we have 2 conditions." He said, "You have to change one word," and that word made material difference. So I said, "I'll think about it." And he said, "Second is that I want the consent of Russia and China before that." So I had the consent of Russia the previous night. I did not have the consent of China. Everyone else's consent I had. So I phoned up the Chinese Sherpa, and then the Chinese Sherpa told me that my Prime Minister who has come says that we'll agree, but we'll agree to one condition. So I said, "What is that?" He said that we'll agree to this one condition, and that para had already been greened. It had been agreed by China earlier that USA will hold the G20 in 2026. He said, we want that line removed. I said, why? You have agreed to it before. He said, because these Americans, they'd never give us visas. Even to the governor of Hong Kong, they don't give us visas. I said, that's your bilateral issue. You can't solve on a multilateral forum. So he said, no, without that line removed, we'll not agree. So the Prime Minister came to Bharat Mandapam at 8:30 to inspect. He asked me, kya ho raha hai? I said, sir, kuch nahi ho raha. Ye to ban hi nahi raha kuch. So he said, ki bhai isko solve karogi. So I told him, sir, ye bilateral issue hai. So then he said, ye to baith ke inke saath solve karo. So the meeting started. The leaders' meeting started. I took the American Sherpa and the Chinese Sherpa into the next room, and I started negotiating with them on this visa issue. And the Chinese said that we want a written agreement, a written guarantee legally vetted that they will give visas to every single person recommended by the government of China, including Hong Kong residents. So I started negotiating. It took me 2.5 hours to convince the Chinese that instead of, he said, you are a native speaker, so you tell us what is the way out. So I said, instead of asking for a guarantee, you just say that we will ensure, the word will be, we will ensure that visas are issued. So I drafted out a letter after 2.5 hours, which the Americans signed, the Chinese accepted, and that's how the agreement was reached. At about 12:45 and 1 p.m., we got the Prime Minister to just announce that the consensus had been reached. So after about 17 rounds, 300 hours of negotiation on one para, we finally succeeded and we achieved that. So these are the very difficult and very, it's been a bed of thorns. It's not been a bed of roses. But some of the lessons of my journey in life has been that it'll not be, life is never easy. It's very tough. But because there are a number of very young students here, particularly from NIIT, the Newtons, you'll face a lot of challenges in life. You'll face a lot of thorns. You'll face a lot of downs all your life. But you should always be optimistic about life. And if you are optimistic about life, you'll always find the solution. Secondly, my belief always has been that whatever you do in life, first have the vision of what you want to do, how you're going to transform it. Whatever job you take, small or big, whatever you do, have the vision to transform that particular job. You'll get job satisfaction if you're always transformational in nature. And therefore, have your outcomes very clear that this is what I want to achieve in this short period that I'm going to be there. And I'm going to achieve it by whatever I do, I'm going to achieve these outcomes. And therefore, once you're clear about the outcomes, the challenge is that quite often we are not clear about what we want to achieve. We do it as a status quo every day. No, you have to be an agent of change. You have to redefine your work. And you have to be very clear that I want to transform this particular area, whatever your area, small or big. And therefore, outcomes, your very clarity of mind about what you want to deliver. And that can only come if you are a big agent of change. And that can only happen if you're bold in your thinking. Always be bold and learn to be risk-taking. It's not possible for India to be a $30 trillion economy without being bold, without being risk-taking. And therefore, it is critical to be both bold, be gutsy, be risk-taking. And all this would require, to my mind, for all of you, if you want to be bold and risky, to build up good teams. And much like Mr. Pawar has done here, to build a good team of his Vice Chancellor, one of whom has now gone away to Surat, many of his team, you have to be a very good team builder. Everything you don't do yourself, you build a very effective team and learn the art of delegating and getting work done by others. And therefore, it's very important that you are a great team leader. And the last point I want to make is that it's important that you are able to communicate your dream and sell your dream. So you have to be an effective communicator in whatever you do. And therefore, it's not just your hard power of your own work, but your soft power of being able to take your team along and convincing others is very important. So the soft power of your personality is equally important as your hard power. So as India continues to grow in the coming years, it's both the digital power, which many of you are learning here. It's your ability to master and capture the digital power with your soft power. And your ability to become great agents of sustainability, of being a green economy in the future, will really be the climate change will be the biggest feature of our life. It'll be the biggest feature of our life, whether we like it or not. The world is heading towards a catastrophe, and the world is what we were to achieve in 2050. The world has already surpassed the 1.5 degree last year. Last year, June 22 was the hottest year in the history of the world. And therefore, climate change will be one of the biggest challenges, and how we redefine the growth trajectory of India will all be the hands of young people like you. So, ladies and gentlemen, with these few words, I take this opportunity to compliment you. All of you are very fortunate that you're studying in a great institution, one of the most outstanding institutions. You've got to be thankful to your teachers and to your parents to have put you here in this really outstanding institution, which has such an outstanding infrastructure. So I wish you all the best and a great future. And I'll be very happy to get grilled, because that's what Mr. Pawar said, that you have to face questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.